Hello and welcome back to the I Like Numbers and F1 podcast for the Saturday recap of the Miami Grand Prix, which includes, of course, the sprint and qualifying. Starting out with the sprint, the standings were as follows. Two cars did not start the sprint. You'll have to bear with me because I did not watch this live. I did watch highlights, full sprint highlights afterwards, but I did not see it live. Just as a warning in case I do get something incorrect. Lindblad and Hulkenberg were the two non-starters for this Grand Prix, for this sprint, and Gary Bortoleto was disqualified for engine pressure on the intake valve or something. So the finishers were as follows: Valtteri Bottas in 19th, and Albon ahead of him. Then Stroll, Perez, Alonso, Lawson, Sainz, Behrman, and Ocon were the non-point scorers, including Colapinto and Hadjar in 10th and 9th, respectively. I think I said that the right way around. Either way, it's on the screen just in case. And then the point scorers were Pierre Gasly in 8th for 1 point, Lewis Hamilton in 7th for 2 points, Kimi Antonelli in 6th for 3 points because of a penalty, 5th place for Max Verstappen and 4 points, George Russell in 4th with 5 points, Charles Leclerc in 3rd with 6 points, Oscar Piastri 2nd with 7 points, and Lando Norris in 1st place for 8 points. Now, before we get into the all teams and drivers, we have the qualifying results to go through as well. Due to that issue with Bortoleto during the sprint, the Audi team had to fix the engine and almost didn't make it out. In the end, they got him out, but I believe with some issues as his brake caught on fire after his one and only run in SQ1, of which he was knocked out in last place, with Perez, Bottas, Stroll, Alonso, and Lindblad joining him. Q2 was Albon, Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Lawson, and Hulkenberg, with the top 10 being Hadjar, but we've got a point on him because he got disqualified, Gasly, Colapinto, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Norris, with P3 taken by Charles Leclerc, P2 taken by Max Verstappen, and pole position taken by Kimi Antonelli, only the 3rd driver ever to take his first 3 poles in a row. Let's get on to the specific teams now, starting with McLaren, who were 4th with Lando and 7th with Piastri, as previously stated, and in the sprint P1 and 2 with Lando taking the sprint win. A very decent sprint from the team, however the qualifying a little bit less good, obviously a little bit down on pace. I have no idea how their pace just disappeared. One of the many drivers and teams that could not improve on their final run in Q3, but very weird. However, we'll see what they can do in the race today, seeing as their race pace in the sprint seemed pretty decent, at least on Lando's side. Mercedes, again, Antonelli losing positions at the start, Russell gaining them. Antonelli didn't lose too many, he dropped to 4th, however, penalty for track limits right at the end of the race caused him to get a 5-second penalty and drop 2 positions to Russell and Verstappen. So yeah, once again, Mercedes showing that their pace has seemingly disappeared. With George at least, Kimi obviously taking pole position. Red Bull have improved, getting 5th and 9th place in the sprint. Hadjar able to get past Colapinto, however Gasly got past the pair of them anyway, so Hadjar not scoring points in the sprint, and Hadjar being disqualified in the qualifying for, let me just search up the FIA document. Nope, that's permission to start. Floorboard. Left hand side and right hand side of the floorboard were protruding out of the reference volume. They were protruding 2mm out of the reference volume, which is a lot, quite a decent way out outside of the volume that they're supposed to be in. So, very interesting from them. He got disqualified, but why do they have to ask for permission to start? Weird. I guess technically they didn't set a lap with a good. Whatever. What on earth is that? I hope you can't hear that. But on Max's side of the garage, Red Bull looking very, very good. Ferrari look like they're second best with Charles, however a little bit down on pace with Lewis, getting 6th and 7th in 7th and 6th in the sprint and then qualifying. I have them the wrong way around, and Charles getting 3rd in both qualifying and the sprint. If Kimi continues to have poor starts, that will help Charles off the line to P2 at least, and Verstappen having a little bit better of a start than Antonelli. Anyway, however, I don't believe that his starts are still that good, so he could still drop at the beginning and give Charles a P1 from turn 1. But we'll have to wait and see in about 2 hours for me, seeing as that's actually an important thing to note. The race time has been brought been brought forward 3 hours so that in case of the thunderstorms, they can shift around the race to make sure that they can get the race done and safely. Obviously, you don't want because obviously if they had it at the normal time, the thunderstorms and the lightning strikes could have delayed the race and made the race not go ahead at all. So bringing it forward 3 hours gives them at least 3 hours, hopefully, to try and get the race done around the thunderstorms. A lot of people online not realising that it's not the rain, it's the thunderstorms. The rain is somewhat fine, probably, hopefully, able to go ahead. It's the thunderstorms that will stop the race because of 1, American law, 2, it's not safe to race during a thunderstorm. Don't want any of the cars to get struck by lightning and potentially electrocute one of the drivers. So yeah, just thought I should bring that up. Should have done that at the top of this, but I did not. So yeah, 9 minutes in instead. Williams, good progress from them, it looks like, getting 13th and 18th in the sprint. A little bit poor on Albon's side. However, qualifying in the main qualifying, getting 13th and 15th into Q2, obviously bumped up 1 position with Hadjar's disqualification. But a very good job from both Williams to get into Q2. Can't believe I'm saying that. But it's a step in the right direction, and they could definitely get closer to points eventually. And help, who knows, F2 race had just finished and it was a crazy one with rain. So if it's the same in F1, could be on for points with the Williams as long as they keep it on the track. RB were a little bit further away from the points, getting 14th and not starting in the sprint. And in main qualifying, 11th and 16th. Little, obviously close with Lawson, just one more position, and he can get points, which will be good for the team. I believe they'll have scored points in every weekend if they do that. And so I wouldn't discount them for scoring some points, especially as my fantasy team, so I will be hoping that Lawson does score some points. Aston Martin, on the other hand, are nowhere near any points, getting 15th and 17th in the sprint, and in the main qualifying session, getting 17th and 18th. Very good job from them in qualifying to get ahead of both Cadillacs once again. However, not close to the Q2 limit at all. They were 9 tenths away from Lindblad with Alonso, and even Lindblad was about 4 tenths. Was about 2 tenths away from Gasly in 16th in Q1 anyway. So yeah, still a long way to go for Alonso and Aston. However, they are making some progress, slowly but surely. Haas are up next, scoring 11th and 12th in the sprint and getting 12th and 14th in qualifying. Got closer to the points in the sprint, obviously. However, would not have scored points even if the points have gone down to 10th, obviously, being just outside. However, they put themselves in a good position in qualifying with 12th and 14th. And if it's raining, just keep it on the track and they can score some decent points. The race pace looks decent-ish. Obviously, getting the 2 spots behind both Alpines in the midfield. So with Hadjar getting disqualified in qualifying, if they have the same race pace, they could definitely be last man in the points if Hadjar can't make it through. But at the moment, they've got a couple of cars in front of them, stopping them from that. On to Audi. Not a good sprint at all for either of them. Hülkenberg blowing up before getting to the grid, and then obviously Bortoleto disqualified from the whole thing, which then also affected his qualifying and only got 21st. Obviously, very good job from the Audi guys to get him out there. However, just a little bit of an error still with that car, as he was not able to drive around with correctly working rear brakes. Had he done that, he probably could have been there with Hülkenberg in Q2. But it's going to be a long race for Bortoleto from the back of the field. However, like I've said about 100 times already this video, if it rains, it could be a pretty good one for him if he can just keep his nose clean. Alpine are best of the rest at the moment, getting P8 in the sprint with Gasly and P10 with Colapinto, getting a point. And then in qualifying, Colapinto ahead of Gasly in 8th and 9th. Very good job from Colapinto, obviously, to get P8 once again in qualifying. A little bit poor in the actual sprint to finish behind his teammate. Obviously behind Hadjar as well. However, that was a very battery-related overtake. At least it looks like it. The highlights obviously did not show how that overtake happened. It only caught it very late, but it definitely looked like it was battery-related. But yeah, Colapinto ahead of Gasly once again in qualifying is a very good shout, very good job from him. And last but not least, the Cadillac boys. P16 and 19 in the sprint with Perez ahead of Bottas, And in the main qualifying, P19 for Bottas ahead of Perez in P20. Somewhat falling back a little bit. Maybe the conditions during the qualifying session just didn't suit that car. Obviously, they were better in sprint qualifying with the medium tyres. So again, it could have been just tyre related performance. So now on to the drivers, starting from the back of the field with Hajar. Once again, the what the drivers and team said on Saturday. Images did not include Red Bull at all. Like, not even images. It didn't include Red Bull. Neither of the Red Bull drivers, I guess, for whatever reason, they didn't talk to it for one. But I don't know. But yeah, Hajar, P9 in the sprint, decent-ish, but not really. 5 seconds behind Gasly for points. Would have expected a little bit more. And honestly, he can't do much about getting disqualified in main qualifying, but I do believe he would have still been behind Colapinto. So Hajar still needs to find some pace in that car somewhere, but because obviously Max is showing like there is pace in that car now, but it's going to be a difficult one for him during the full race. Bortoleto in P21 in qualifying, and obviously disqualified from the sprint. Not much he can do about the disqualification, and then obviously the disqualification is the main cause of why his qualifying had such a busy start for his engineers. Whether he can do anything from the back is a little bit less likely than Hajar being in a slower car, but if it's anything like Hulkenberg from last season, he can make it up, but it's probably unlikely that Bortoleto can do anything from where he is on the grid or pit lane. I don't know. I don't think the grid's been announced yet. Yeah, no. Actually, there's a provisional starting grid, but not actual grid because that doesn't start till 2 hours. The race doesn't start until just under 2 hours, and the grid doesn't get published fully until an hour before, as far as I'm aware. Checo, P20 behind his teammate, which is a surprise for qualifying, but ahead of him in the sprint race. About 3/10 off in qualifying, and I mean Cadillac a little bit poor in qualifying though. They were ahead of the Astons in sprint qualifying, so they lost a little bit of pace or confidence or just something between the sessions, and obviously Perez paying a little bit of the price for it, being the last of the representative times in qualifying. But he was fighting in midfield in the first couple of laps in the sprint, so if he can do that again in the main race, he probably won't be able to hold on to them. He couldn't hold on to them in the sprint anyway. However, it'll be interesting to see how he continues to race that midfield if he can. It's probably unlikely, seeing he is at the back of this back markers anyway. Valtteri Bottas getting P19 in the sprint and P19 in qualifying. That man loves a P19 at the moment around Miami. A poor sprint. A second behind Albon, who's 11 seconds behind Stroll, Perez and Alonso. So just nowhere in the sprint. A little bit somewhere in qualifying, being 3/10 ahead of his teammate, but again, half a second behind Stroll. So they were firmly at the back in qualifying. and just couldn't do anything with the car for that. But it'll be interesting to see how they go if the race is wet. Lance Stroll finished P17 in sprint and finished P18 in qualifying. A tenth behind his teammate in qualifying, which is not bad, closer than it was in Japan, and I think it was 3 tenths in Japan. So a little bit of improvement from him there, getting right behind his teammate, which is very good for them. However, they are still a long way behind the team and cars ahead of them. Alonso finishing, what was that, 16 seconds behind Lawson in the sprint. So yeah, they've still got a lot of pace to find, but they've got a 3-week break after this race. So as long as they can finish the race with both of their cars, they should be able to collect some data that can help them improve that car. Fernando Alonso finished ahead of his teammate in 15th for the sprint and 17th for qualifying. Not much more that can be said that wasn't said for Stroll. Doing better than his teammate, of course, which is good. However, still a long way from points and even just the midfield. So, just finish the race and hopefully they can get some data that can help them at least challenge the midfield from Canada onwards. Unlikely that they can make a big step like Williams did, because Williams' issues are a lot different. But if they can start showing signs of improvement with upgrades in Canada, that'd be good. And then obviously heading over to Europe starting from June. And last one knocked out in Q1, Arvid Lindblad did not start the sprint. Was supposed to start from the pit lane, but did not start. And 16th in qualifying, 2 tenths away from making it through to Gasly. However, quite a bit off his teammate, 6 tenths in Q1. So still a little bit off his teammate, a little bit of time to find. Obviously, first time around this circuit, so got to give a little bit of rookie tax there. But yeah, not much more to be expected from Lindblad. A little bit off his pace that he was showing in the first couple of races, but he knows Australia, so the good race around there was to be a little bit expected. But China and Japan, he was a little bit off the pace, and he is once again a little bit off the pace, but a little bit more this time around. But I think that can be down to RB not improving as much as the other teams around them. Like Williams with Albon. Albon finishing P18 in sprint and P15 in qualifying, getting through to Q2 for reals this time for Albon. A little bit off his teammate, 2 tenths in Q1 and 4 tenths in Q2. But still a very good job from them to get into Q2. And Williams are beginning to make strides back into the midfield. I believe they've still got a little bit of weight to shave off. I say a little bit, probably a big bit of weight to shave off still. But they've all got 3 weeks to Canada, so finish this race with both their cars, and if one of them's at the back, collect some more data. But it's wet, so they could have a good chance of scoring some points. Esteban Ocon up next, finished the sprint in 11th and qualified 14th. Good job from him to get 11th in the sprint ahead of his teammate, obviously, from where he started. Got knocked out in SQ1. But didn't get knocked out in Q1 this time. Was still close, 3 tenths to Lindblad. But qualified behind his teammate once again. So little bits of improvement here and there, but not consistent enough to take on that leader role within the team, which at the moment Ollie is firmly trying to take the position of. Carlos Sainz qualified P13, where he finished the sprint. Obviously, a good sprint from him to get P13, probably the best that they could have got. Was a second behind the Hasses, so could have probably got 11th if he had been a little bit more fortunate. Couldn't get more fortunate in qualifying. He was only a 10th away from 10th place, so a little bit more pace, maybe a better corner here or there, and he probably could have got 11th. Probably would not have been able to get through to Q3. There was a big margin from Hulkenberg in 11th to Gasly in 10th, 4 tenths. So wouldn't have been able to get through, but he is very close to those points and could be on for a shout with a good strategy and some good race pace to at least challenge for the points. Probably not score them. I think they're still a little bit away from Alpine, but at least challenge the drivers behind in case one of those front runners do retire or Hadjar doesn't make it back through. Oliver Behrman finished the sprint in P12 and qualified P12. Good job from him in the sprint-ish. Did finish behind his teammate after starting a good chunk ahead. So a little bit poor in the sprint there, but I think that can be contributed a little bit more to such a good job that Ocon did in the sprint. But very good job in qualifying to out-qualify his teammate once again. And he is only 2 positions away from points. So a good start from him and a bad one from the guys around. He could get into the points. And Miami is usually difficult to overtake. So he could be on to hold on to his points there if he gets ahead of them. So that'd be a great bounce back after Japan. Liam Lawson finished the sprint in 14th, finished qualifying in P11. Obviously, having to make up ground in the sprint for the mistake of the stewards, but only able to catch on to the back of the midfield, about just under a second behind Lawson. So right at Sainz, sorry. So right in that mid-pack there with the Hasses and Sainz. Sorry. And then in qualifying, getting P11 is 1 spot away from points. So, as I said, good start and good strategy, and he could be well on for points in every. Could be on for points once again. Unlikely to get any higher though, because those Alpines look a little bit further ahead. Nico Hulkenberg did not start the sprint, but qualified P10. Obviously can't talk much about that sprint. Car, just set on fire. The Audi's setting on fire quite a bit this weekend. But a good job in qualifying to get to P10, so if he can hold off the drivers behind him, he should be on for points. But that Audi is showing that they've got potential and they can score points when they can qualify highly when presented the opportunity. On to the drivers in Q3 then, apart from Hadjar, because we already talked about him and got disqualified. Pierre Gasly finished the sprint in P8, scoring a point for the team, and should start the race in P9. A very good job in the sprint to get past his teammate and Hajar to score the points for the team. But a little bit off his pace, a little bit off the pace from his teammate in qualifying. Almost got knocked out in Q1, being that driver in 16th place. A little bit, he was quite safe, obviously being 2 tenths away from Lindblad, but you still don't want to be the guy that got through in 16th. And then half a tenth off his teammate in Q3. So, yeah, I thought Gasly would do the better around here of the 2 Alpines, but he's still doing pretty well and still a standout driver from the season so far, alongside Behrman. And if you can score points in the race today, then he's going to maintain and probably take that role completely as head of the midfield. Franco Colapinto, however, is doing a very good job on the other side of the garage, finishing 10th in the sprint, but taking 8th in qualifying. On for a good points haul in the race if he can keep that position ahead of his teammate. Even if he just falls 1 position behind his teammate, keep the cars behind, and he will be on for 2 points in the main race. So a very good job from the Argentine, and hopefully for his sake he can continue these performances. On to the front runners, starting with the man that finished P2 in the sprint, Oscar Piastri, qualifying P7. Very weird one from McLaren in qualifying, off the back of a 1-2 in the sprint. Don't know what happened to them. Just no pace in that final session for whatever reason. No pace in qualifying at all, actually. Obviously, I said Gasly was the one in 16th in SQ1. No, he wasn't. It was Oscar Piastri. Oscar almost getting knocked out in qualifying in the first session. That would have been an embarrassment. But in the end, he did get P7, but only P7, 2 tenths away from Hamilton in front, and 4 tenths behind his teammate Norris in 4th. So lacking a little bit of pace, a lot more pace than I would have thought, but managed to stay ahead of Charles throughout the whole sprint. So still able to score decent points in the sprint. Probably unlikely to score decent points in the full race, however. Lewis Hamilton scoring 7th in the sprint and qualifying 6th in qualifying. Yes, that's what you do. You qualify in qualifying. 2 points for him in the sprint. Fell off a lot, actually, from Verstappen and Russell ahead. 8 seconds the gap by the end of the sprint. Don't know what happened there. I did enjoy Max and Lewis fighting again, albeit a little bit naughty from Max going deep, of course, and then Max. I say Max. Lewis not wanting to take back the place that Max was giving him at the final corner. Probably cost Max an opportunity at high positions, but obviously Lewis doesn't care about that. But what you will care about is that 8-second gap. Not much pace around here for Lewis. Yeah. 2 tenths away from his teammate in qualifying. So a little bit closer. However, that is 3 positions on the grid, so very costly, those 2 tenths. George Russell finishing in the sprint ahead of his teammate thanks to his teammate's 5-second penalty. And then qualifying P5, albeit 4 tenths off his teammate in pole position. Good job in the sprint to get P4. Obviously, could have probably would have finished behind Verstappen had Verstappen and Lewis not battled so hardly. That's so hard earlier, but very good job for him to get P4. He would have obviously lost positions to Antonelli had Antonelli not track limited, but instead gains 2 points on him in the championship. However, he looks to lose those 2 points in the race, obviously starting 5th behind Antonelli in 1st, looking to lose 13 points in the race if he can't do something about that. He should be able to if Antonelli has a poor start once again. Lando Norris won the sprint but finished qualifying in P4, 4 tenths down on pole position. A very good job from him in the sprint, however, 4 seconds almost away from his teammate, about 2 tenths per lap. So a very good job from him there, however, lacking a little bit of pace in qualifying. His teammate was almost knocked out in Q1, he was almost knocked out in Q2. For whatever reason, the McLaren's just no pace in the afternoon. Had it all Friday afternoon, had it all of Saturday morning, but just lacking a little bit of it in Saturday evening, afternoon, whatever. But still ahead of his teammate and ahead of a couple of those front runners. Charles Leclerc finishing P3 in sprint and finishing P3 in qualifying. Could have been on for pole, however, 2 tenths away from Verstappen and then 2 tenths away, who is 2 tenths behind Antonelli. So a little bit further back than he would have liked. However, judging by the cars ahead of him previous starts, he could be leading by turn 1, but I won't have my hopes up for it because Charles hasn't been too good in the rain recently. Well, I say Charles. Ferrari haven't been too good in the rain ever, as far as I remember, as far as I've been watching. And so, if it does rain, it could be a P2 in P3 in qualifying to a dismal race, but hopefully not. Hopefully Ferrari can take that P3 and keep it, or change it into P2 or P1. Someone else that will be looking to change his position into a P1 is obviously Max Verstappen, finishing 5th in the sprint and qualifying P2. Oh, so close to pole position, but that Mercedes power unit just a little bit better than the Red Bulls. Still very good job from Max, and he can be a lot happier with that compared to where he was in China and Japan, of course. Whether he can turn it into a P1 or not remains to be seen, but if it is wet, I wouldn't discount Max, and even if it's dry, I wouldn't discount Max. He seems a lot happier with where Red Bull have got their car at the moment. And someone that is very happy with where he's got his car at the moment is Kimi Antonelli. Not so much in the sprint, obviously finishing 6th with that 5-second penalty, but getting his 3rd pole position and his 3rd in a row. Only 2 other drivers were able to do that: Schumacher and Senna. What a list to be part of. Obviously, if he continues from this pole position to win Miami, he'll be one of the few drivers that have won their first 3 victories in a row as well. I don't think Senna is on that list. I believe Damon Hill's on that list, I think. Charles Leclerc almost was on that list, but poor strategy in Singapore 2019 gave his teammate the win instead. But strategy is going to be everything for Kimi Antonelli in the race today. Obviously, starting P1, he just needs to sort out those sprint at those starts. If you can sort that out, then the only thing they'll have to deal with is Max and potential rain, which is two things. But a very good job from Antonelli to once again get pole position, and looks in prime position to extend his championship lead over George. Last but not least, if it's dry, let's look at the strategies. Obviously, this all hinges on the race being dry, but Pirelli believe that the best strategy is starting from the mediums and going to the hards on a one stop, pitting around lap 22. However, you can start on the softs and go from pit on lap 16 to 22 to go onto the hards, or you can start mediums and finish the race on the softs, pitting around lap 32 to 38. As for the tyres available, everyone in the top 10 has, including Kadra, everyone that got it to Q3 has very similar tyres available, all of them with 3 used softs available. Sorry, you can't see that. 3 used softs available. Only they've all got one hard set available. However, the Red Bulls have both got one used hard available as well, in replace for one used medium, for which everyone has 2 instead of Red Bull's 1, and they've all got 1 new medium as well. How about the rest of the grid? Well, they've all got 1 new set of hard, and it's very mixed in terms of what everyone else has got for tyres. Hulkenberg, Lawson and Behrman have all got 3 new softs, along with Alonso, Stroll and Bottas. Lindblad has 3, and so does Bortoletto, and Perez has 2. Sainz, Ocon and Albon have used all of their new softs, so they have none. Hulkenberg, Behrman, Alonso all have 2 used set of softs. Perez has 1. Stroll, Bottas, Lawson, Sainz and Albon have 3 used softs, with Ocon having 4. Hulkenberg has 2 new softs, 2 new mediums, Lawson, Behrman, Lindblad have 1 new medium. The rest of those drivers have 2, the likes of Sainz, Ocon, Albon, Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, Perez and Bortoletto. With Hulkenberg, Lawson, Sainz, Albon, Alonso, Perez and Bortoletto having 1 used medium. Behrman and Lindblad having 2 used mediums, and Ocon, Stroll and Bottas having none used mediums. In terms of the weather and pit loss time, under green flags, the pit loss time is 19 seconds, and under safety car and VSC, it is 10 seconds, of which we have had 50% safety cars, 75% VSCs, and 0% red flags. The weather forecast, had it started at 4 o'clock local time to Miami, would have been 60% chance of rain. 66, sorry. However, it's been brought forward 3 hours, so it should be less likely chance of rain. Less likely chance of thunderstorm, and with that should come less chance of rain. However, rain could spice up the strategy a lot. Oh, there's the race simulation pace image. Mercedes apparently have the best. Ferrari and McLaren are level, just behind. Red Bull are in a world of their own, just behind them. Alpine are a lot further back, but but by themselves. Then the midfield is very tight. RB just ahead of Audi, just ahead of Haas, and ahead of Williams, with Cadillac just ahead of Aston Martin way off at the back. All supposedly. Obviously, Sprint shows a little bit of a different story, and obviously if it rains, that could go all out the window. So that is all for the Saturday recap of the Miami Grand Prix. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. Or you don't have to. You don't have to if you don't want to. I don't know. Why have I said that? I don't usually say that. That's weird. Anywho, that is all from me today. Join me again tomorrow after the race, if it hopefully goes ahead, where I will go through the race and talk about how each driver performed during it. I hope the race is a good one. The F2 was a very good one, but the F2 always have a good race. So if you watch the F2, F1's going to be a little bit worse. Probably a little bit more than a little bit. But it still gives a good idea on how the race could go. Other than that, have a good rest of your day. Bye.